Hello everyone, it's Rosemary with Good Journeys Tarot, and today I'm going to be exploring the hashtag Hearth and Home decks by Dawn Michelle at Boho Tarot. She gave us 8 prompts that she went through. Decks that, remind you of hearth and home, the things that you think about as fall comes into play during the year. And I am kicking things off with prompt 1, Hearth and Home, the deck that feels like coming home. And for me, that was a Fyodor Pavlov. I connected with this deck the first time I saw it on Kickstarter, and I continue to work with it regularly. For me, this just was a great substitution for the Rider-Waite. It's drawn in a kind of traditional style as far as the way the characters are clothed and their settings and whatnot. However, they've added diversity, and the colors are beautiful. Each suit has its own color. And something about looking at these, it just always makes me feel like I'm at home. This is my comfortable space. I like a traditional deck, but I love that it is diverse. There are only 2 cards in this deck that probably could have been slightly better, and that is, I have a little bit of issue with the Death card, because I don't see quite the transition that I like to see in that card. Even though it's a gorgeous depiction of death in general. And the other one is the Judgment card, which I think looks a lot like death might normally look. But yeah, I just really enjoy working with this. And this was the first card I thought of when I thought Hearth and Home and Coming Home, was this Queen of Coins image here of with the baked bread. The second prompt is Gather Together, and that's supposed to be the deck that reminds you of family and friends. And at first I was like, I really don't have a deck for that, because nothing ever really reminds me of my family or friends. However, I will say that I have gotten some of that from this deck, the Modern Love Tarot. And in fact, this is the deck which I have now read with multiple times for one of my friends. I wish they were tarot size, but they are actually a little larger. But these really do look like everyday people and situations, and so I can actually relate these to people that I know in many cases. Every time I look at this card, I think of Ethany. I'm not sure why, but yeah, it reminds me of like people of all kinds from my life. I do enjoy it. So, Light Up Your Life, the deck that lights your way through the dark. Okay, so that's this deck, and I almost didn't include it because I have been using it on my altar space this year for my monthly cards that I drew at the beginning of the year. This deck is just so beautiful, and it always makes me so happy when I look at it. It's very nature-oriented, which I love, and it's not all animals like some animal decks. There are people pictured in it. It's really a gorgeous deck, and one that just brightens my day, even when I get some of the worst cards, so to speak, in the tarot. I love everything about this deck. The card stock, the suits, the imagery. It's just gorgeous. And I keep wanting to work with it, and then I'm like, well, no, you're using it to display cards. Rainy days, the deck you want to curl up with on a rainy day. I ended up choosing the Hip Chick Tarot. I don't work with this deck a lot because it's an all-female deck, and I kind of am not comfortable with decks that are not inclusive of both, at the very least, two genders, if not all genders, as much as possible. But it's a very fun deck. It's very light, and it's very bright and colorful. It's certainly one that on a rainy day, images would still pop out to me and brighten my day. I love it. Oh, this is one of my favorite tower cards of all time. I just love how she's bursting forth from the tower instead of falling from it. Harvest Nights. So the deck that evokes the feeling of harvest, of bonfires and that type of thing, I chose the Green Witch Tarot, which to me actually does evoke a lot of that feeling for me. In particular, there's some cards in here that are perfectly bonfire, harvest night feeling. Let's see if we can get to one of my favorites here. I love this. I love that too. Okay. Just the most gorgeous emperor, right? All right, we'll move on. Handmade with Love. So this was an interesting one because I wasn't sure at first what to include because I only have one deck that's a collage deck. And then I thought about this one, which is the Illuminated Tarot, which is, while not a craft style deck, it just for some reason, the way the imagery is done reminds me of arts and crafts, or at least handmade things. Some of the imagery really reminds me of that kind of country craft kind of feeling. There is a card in here, which is the Judgment card. That is a rooster that just screams to me handmade. Yeah. So this was the deck that I chose. I like working with this deck periodically. I think it's a fun deck. Some of the cards, obviously, as I've talked about in other videos, have double meaning, i.e. they are the suit, but then they are also a major arcana. It's a fun deck to work with. So, Thankful, Grateful, and Blessed. So that's the deck. Whoops, this one. The Rider Waite. I love the Rider Waite. It is a reimagining of the RWS, a little bit more modernized. Some cards more than others. But I just love this deck because I see myself in it when I'm reading with it. It just seems very real to me. Like this, I can totally imagine doing this and have done that. I mean, and this could have been me at certain points in my life. Totally could be me. Okay. And so that's why I chose this deck. It always makes me feel happy and grateful for my life and for where I've come from and where I'm headed and all of that goodness. The last deck is the Comfy and Cozy deck, the deck that's always there for you. So this is a deck which every time I pick it up gives me just clear and concise readings. And I would probably work with it on a daily basis if it were not for the cardstock, which tends to tear pretty easily. But this is the Uncommon Tarot, and it is a collage deck. And I don't know why. I've always been averse to collage decks, but when I saw this one, I couldn't resist it. And then I did my first reading with it, and it spoke so clearly to me. And every time since, it has just spoken clearly to me when I have picked it up. I mean, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to pull any resources to dig for meaning in my readings. The everything just came to me when I looked at the cards. And so that's why I find it to be my comfy, cozy deck. So the way I did this was I first thought about the prompts and I was like, okay, what deck do I have? And I couldn't come up with anything. And so then I looked at my inventory of decks and I was like, okay, which ones remind me of harvest or that homey feeling? And I narrowed it down to a set, and then I chose from those cards for the prompts because I really was not sure at first if I even had any cards that would work for this. But as it turns out, I had several decks, all of which I enjoy working with regularly. And I'm glad that I took this opportunity to pull them out and to think about that. And over the next several weeks of fall, I'll hopefully enjoy working with them again and again. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Until next time, good journeys.